Hello and welcome back to CT Pro Plays. And today it's going to be a little bit of a different video. Today we're going to be doing a semi-comprehensive guide on your beginning in Computer Tycoon. So I think without any real further introduction, we should just get right in. So I'm going to pretty much comprehensively explain every part of this. So you got your choose map mode. If you just want to know, historical is the one I'll be choosing as it's the most replicable. It's always the same every time. So it's probably the best if you want to follow this guide perfectly. Randomized is a little different. Sometimes you got a better map than historical, but sometimes you got a worse. Because the wealth and the population of all countries are randomized, but it's usually randomized around a similar level. So countries like the Netherlands will always have like 100 million people, but Germany will never have more than 10 million. It's a bit of a strange randomization. It's not really truly randomized. It's just a specific difference. But wealth and preferences are all randomized. Now, preferences is an important thing. We're going to get into that later. It's very important for your sales and what you focus on research on. And then there's also the simplified map here. I don't really play around with this one too much. So basically all the regions are in a just larger region area, and they're all individual markets. But with the new update where they've basically reworked logistics, it's not really a new update, it's the newest one in the latest branch, but it's been on the open test branch for a really long time. If you're still on the open test branch for this game, you should go on to the main branch if you want, just because it's the same version that's been uploaded to the normal branch. Even here it says the open beta branch, even though this is the main branch. It's not the open beta branch. So I'm just going to start historical. Now you've got to choose game mode and challenge. Sandbox, you don't have any competitors, and a lot of money, it just says here. Special scenarios and challenges. If you're trying to follow this guide, I wouldn't follow it in a challenge. A lot of these have different needs. Like the tech broker, you have to cannot manufacture, entirely on research. Yeah, you just... So I'm just going to head into a normal game here. In terms of here, you've got your avatar. You can select anybody you want. Bonus, this is quite important. This is essentially how many percent is taken off a site for these. So 20% research, your research is 20% cheaper. 10% production, you've got 10% cheaper production. And 40% logistics are 40% cheaper. Now, generally, I would go for, this is not like on top. It's not an on top bonus to your research, but actually just making it cheaper. So you have to keep that in mind. So I'll take 20% research. It's my favorite one. Color, just select your color. It doesn't really matter. Difficulty, I'll be doing this on Innovator just so it's easier to show. But this guide, it could definitely be applied to Impossible. You might have to take out a loan in Impossible if you want to do this guide, and it might be a lot harder in Impossible. It will be a lot harder, but I've played an Impossible before, so I do know how to beat Impossible. It is definitely very micro heavy, but there is one major strategy you really need to follow if you want to make the most out of any difficulty, which we will explain right after we finish our first computer. So you've got an opponent saying save. This really doesn't matter. These are all... I reset them. I reset them to the original. So now we have all the original competitors. I'm just going to keep them all on. I won't turn any of them off because there's no real point. And now I'm going to start a game. Just give me a moment. Should go around. There we go. So here's a tutorial. If it's your first time playing it, so I highly recommend it to go through the tutorial. But after the tutorial, start a new game. The tutorial does not leave you in a great place. It's not perfect, as in it's not really the best in terms of how you micromanage it and how you properly manage it. And so I'll just skip the tutorial. Here you've got your skills, and now it's very important what each skill does. Charisma allows you to hire managers much quicker. So I personally Your first manager, you have a lot of points. With your first two managers, you want to really assign the proper bonuses for each. You've got 195 points left here. So for the charisma, you should probably set around 80, because your 80 is the maximum. So you really want to set that, as you're going to be hiring two managers early on. Until 1985, you can't have more than 4 managers. So this is important. Also, specific marketing campaigns, even though there is a marketing skill, but like the TV interview, which later on really multiplies your fans, is much better when you have 80 charisma. So I personally do that. Now we've got research. Research, unlike the main research bonus where we talked about earlier in the company creation scheme, screen, this is actually a multiplier for your actual research output, not a discount. So essentially, if you hear, however, it isn't really proportional. I think if you get this, it's around 40%. I'm not entirely sure, it's either 40 or 20, but I'm not entirely sure. So I'm not going to give research to my main manager. You don't want to really give research or manufacturing to your main manager anyway, as you're going to be the one with charisma, with a high charisma stat. You could also go with your partner doing this. It doesn't really affect anything, but you do get a lot more points on your main manager, and so that's why I picked this. So then you've got manufacturing. This is a very small bonus. So 80% does not mean you produce 80% more. It's the same as research, except with factories. You only produce around 20% more. So I honestly just don't really do manufacturing that much. It is useful. You do save a little bit of money, but there is definitely. Now we're going to go accounting. Accounting is quite a nice skill. It lets you decrease tax rates. And accounting is one of my favorite skills in this game. Especially when we're going to eventually, this is the world map, eventually we're going to move on to the US. And the US has a really high tax rate. If we can lower that to really low, a single digit number at least, and then we have the reseller cut. That means we have 250 million people we can sell to that are rich. Wealth is super important, as we'll see later. So then, of course, we got logistics. Logistics is actually a really good bonus, and I'm actually playing around with it a lot more. It's really good as logistic sites are really expensive to build, and early on you might not have the funds. And logistics are your main way of expanding. In this game, you don't have to pay any logistics fee. You don't have to send shipping. So for example, if you manufacture your system in India, for example, you don't have to pay to get it shipped to, for example, the United Kingdom here. However, I think logistic factories kind of serve as a replacement. So you have to have logistic points, which I'll explain later. Then there's also marketing, where we've got 0 out of 100. We have to get marketing points here. So right now we don't have any marketing points. This is useful for some specific CEO interactions. So honestly, on my first manager, I always put it up. It's quite a great combination with charisma. It allows you to get your fans up very quickly. This is a very useful resource. They pretty much always buy your computers. So it's basically just extra sales. So you really want to have a fan figure. And now the rest, 40 points. Generally, you're not going to really be using any of the rest if you have a marketing and charisma manager. But these are basically all passive skills. So we've already got 2 of the active. Why not just get the last active skill? So that's going to be one of our managers, with probably our founder. And now we've got our secondary. For the sake of this, it doesn't really matter what profile you get, because it used to matter because the reset button wasn't here, but now we can reset and we can select how we like. So generally, I always improve the loyalty. You can actually lower loyalty to 0. That's a very bad idea. I wouldn't do that. I think, so as you can see here, that was the points we had left after our main manager had 100 loyalty. This means the more loyalty you put into this manager, the less points they have. So loyalty essentially makes, if they have 100 loyalty, their monthly salary never changes. The higher the loyalty, the less their salary changes. Right now it doesn't really affect, doesn't really affect your, if they leave. There's no real like layoff mechanic. They're not really just leaving your business, but they do get a higher salary and you can't really change this. So having a high loyalty is good, as they won't really increase their monthly salary as much. Although I don't think it's that important. I just think 50 is a minimum and you could get more. So for the rest of this, we want our second manager to be a passive manager. It depends on what you like. So you have 80 points. So we've got research. If you really want to research rush, which it is a very useful skill. I love to use it personally. But sometimes it's not perfect, if you know. Then there's also manufacturing, which honestly I just avoid at the very start. It can be useful, but it's just not worth the amount of real points or manager. Now accounting, that's going to be really nice for when we get the United States of America. So I am actually going to spec this manager into accounting. But before then, I think I'm going to make it a temporary research manager. I might actually lower loyalty by 10. This is probably a combination I haven't tried before, historical, but it really makes sense because you're not going to, you have to do something before you actually get into the US market. So I'm going to make I'm going to make her a passive research manager. So this is the second manager. You just want them to be in passive skills. So essentially, your partner, you want them to be in passive skills, which are these 4 skills. And your main manager, you want to be in active skills, these 3 skills. So, and loyalty is quite important. So there, we've got all of our, head back into the office screen. We've got our little office. If you do the tutorial, you actually have a little garage at first, but then you sell computers. So if you just play a normal game, you'll immediately go into this office. So now I'm just going to show you what I would do. So here, you're going to want to look at your manager. So this is an active manager. These are passive skills. These are active skills. So marketing, infiltration, charisma, active, and research, manufacturing, accounting, and logistics is passive. So that's why I'm going to go here. And this manager, which is my active manager, he is going to do one of these. So I should probably explain each one of these. Reward increases like your loyalty by 3 points. It's quite pointless early on. You really want to spend more of your time doing useful things for your company than saving a little bit of money. There's also training. I wouldn't really do this on your first 2 managers because they already have such a high skill where it doesn't really matter as much. But if you get a really low level manager and you want to get him into something specific, training is a very useful thing. Next, you got sabotage the random site. Now, these infiltration, I kind of just don't really take a look at. Steal random technology is really random and barely works. Even if you have a manager that has 80 points in it, it's just not very good. So I would just avoid this. I'd much rather do one of these other constructive that actually help your business. But I only put the 40 in just in case one day we might want to. Also, your competitors can sue you if they find out about you, which lawsuits, it's pretty annoying to be on the wrong side of one. But then there's spreading lies about a company now. These are marketing. I don't really like to sabotage your opponents because they can really actually fight back. They can sue you. So I tend to play it safe, and especially if it's your first play, I tend to play it safe and only to use this top half and training and rewards. So anything from software, look for software licenses above. So this gives you software licenses that increase some of your points. It's very useful as it makes your computers better. Even if you have the same research as your opponents, if you have a better OS, it could really push your quality, features, performance, basically everything up. So it's a very useful skill. Looking for exclusive video games. Now this one is risk-based, so you want, I don't think we're going to be doing the exclusive video games in this episode, as this episode will be the 1974 guide. Yeah, on your first day, it's always 1972 for some reason. I think that's for the tutorial. So, there. So we're going to be not probably looking at this video. If you want a sequel for this, with some of the more stuff that you're going to do later on in your playthrough, you could drop a comment below and like it if you'd like. Then we got the television interview campaign. Do not do this early on. You can see here there's a cost to everything. Actually, they should actually have a labeling here. It's probably a suggestion I should have for the developer. It's an early access game, so there's always something to be added, but it would be very useful if there would be a little sorting thing there. But this has 100 million, and you can read these tooltips. So essentially, you get a % bonus of your current fan base, which is 3 times more than this one. Essentially, time it takes depends on charisma. So this one's really good later on when 100 million is like really little money when you're making that much per day, which eventually you can. And then you can just up your fan amount, and your fans contribute to making your money per day much higher. So it just gets really good really quick. Organized programming competition. Now this one I generally don't. Now this one gives you 100 fans for every country you sell. That's a % bonus of your current fan base. So 2 times more than this one. This one's the most basic one. You only have to pay 100,000. You get 10 new fans and % bonus. I don't really fiddle with these early on. I essentially just later on I just go for the television interview campaign, and that's basically it. But these ones I do find they are useful if you need them. But I'm going to find another manager. This just allows you to do one of these another time. So with another manager, or a passive skill, which we'll be looking at with her after we build our first site. So I'm just going to put him on finding another manager. So now the next part is you're going to be wanting to build your sites. When you're setting up your game, building sites is one of the most important things in the game. So to understand this, we're going to have to look at wealth. As you can see wealth here, you can see this wealth map. The darker the color, the higher wealth. Really dark means you're really, really rich. This lower number, this rich means they're fairly rich. And then when you got the little, can't really find it there. If you got the little middle tone, it's average. Poor are like that, and this is poverty. So essentially, you kind of only want your sites in the both extremes. You don't want to build your sites in rich, average, or poor countries. You've basically always got enough money to start 2 sites, even on impossible difficulty. So you always want to start a site in a filthy rich market, so you have cheap research, and a very poor market, so you have really cheap manufacturing. Those are the main bonuses. So essentially, the richer the market, the cheaper the research, the poorer the market, the more expensive the production. Average markets are in the middle. They don't have any bonuses. So here, I'm probably just going to go. You don't want to go and have a site in a country that's just going to turn communist in a while. So you really want to stick safe. You can stick safe. So I'm going to. It really doesn't matter what poverty market you build in, so I'm just going to build it in India. Doesn't really matter. So here I've gone Indian, and this one's a poverty site. So you're going to have really cheap manufacturing. That'll be your manufacturing base. And next we're going to want a filthy rich country. So filthy rich is a few here. You've got Kuwait, the UAE. Now actually, I do remember they did rebalance this. Now there's only 4 filthy rich countries in the entire game. And this is a market organizing screen. Generally, I wouldn't really use this main screen because it doesn't really tell you everything. If you're very familiar with historical, it's useful, but this one's just the best for knowing everything off by heart. So knowing everything, so you can choose your wealth. So I'll just pick any one of these. I'm just going to do Switzerland. It's the biggest. I'm going to build the site here. Quite expensive. Your second site is expensive. So next, I just want to show some site-specific bonuses. So if you're going to go into here, that's another screen. We'll do that after we start selling computers. But then, I assume there was a screen. Yes, this screen. This is your. If you go here, you click on this, then you have your little base screen, and this is generally something that tells you all you need to know about this stuff. We're gonna go back to this paid sales tax and the reseller cut and all that later when we're actually building our computers and this part. But I just want to talk about governmental support. if you have been operating a level 3 factory or level 4 lab for the whole year, they'll decrease the sales tax for the company by 1% permanently. And also there must be a 60% budget. Even if your department is a higher level, your company can get this tax decrease only 30 times, meaning that will decrease your tax by a maximum of 30%, but we will never decrease the sales tax under 5%. So what that's saying is, if you have a high level factory or site, they'll lower your tax. So this is India here. So if I operate for a level 3 site for 30 years, which is pretty likely, my tax might one day be at only 8%. Early on, this isn't something to worry about, and by that point, you probably won't be focusing on all the little micro management here. So we should just start building all the sites. This is an office. You get 10% decrease on all your site costs, and it's a prerequisite for logistics. If you want level 2 logistics, you have to have level 2 offices, which is why I pretty much always immediately build some good level offices. Next, we've got factories, and this is just for production. It's quite obvious when you're building your computers. You really want to update this as soon as possible. So here you've actually got a little next level screen, and it tells you everything you need to know. So there's a build cost. It's really cheap when it comes to factories. You don't really have to worry about that. But you do want it on the later levels to take into consideration the build cost when you're looking at your actual amount of money. Then there's also a max daily cost and a max production. The unit price is $1.14 for PP. PP stands for production points. A PP is essentially, I should probably not get cancelled, but a production point is where one production point essentially equals a certain amount of dollars here. A production point is used to produce computers and hardware components later on. So that's why I would recommend. So build it in your poverty country. Then the next we've got research. Now research, I'm going to do something a little differently. Since this is a lower difficulty level, I'm going to build a research site in both India and Switzerland. If this were higher, I'm actually just going to see if the research is how I was expecting it. This is the right difficulty. So because this is an impossible Tycoon or any of the higher difficulties, I would actually build a research site in both. It's not too expensive. It costs 2 million for level 1, and yeah, you have to pay a little bit of money per research point. Now, the one thing you want to do is, as soon as you got the money and a little bit extra, you really want to upgrade your research as much as you can, because a high research allows you to go ahead of your competition, and it's also cheaper per research point. It works like factories. The more you upgrade your factory, the cheaper they are per production point, of course. So you're not going to have like 5 million per production point isn't cheaper than 100,000. It's just that it's more efficient. Next, you have logistics. I mean, you have to build some sort of logistics first. And you have to build your 2 logistics, no matter what difficulty. 4 logistic points, you just need it for your early expansion. Next, we got recreation. You actually have to level 1 site of any of these, so we actually can't build it. Now, this one I actually have found no use for. If you're struggling, just don't build them. I've never had a tech breakthrough. Essentially, you get a really small % chance per day for you to get a free technology, but that's never worked for me. I have never received a free technology, even over 20 years. And having a bunch of level 3 recreation sites, so I wouldn't really care. I mean, they are really cheap and you don't really have to pay much, but they just don't work for me. Marketing, this is an interesting thing. Generally, as you get bigger, you want to start marketing, but build marketing sites. But excuse me, I'm a little sick this morning, but I promised I would make this video. So yeah, there we've got $1 million a build cost for both of these, and you have to pay a daily cost of $12,500. So early on, it's not really worth it because your money is essentially going to be really tight and the efficiency is really low. This is a 1% discount, a maximum of 100%. So, and also in contrast to much of the other sites, the bigger you build the marketing, the more expensive it is per efficient percent. So you want to build a bunch of smaller ones. Also, the same is said for logistics. Logistics do get more expensive for high levels, but research and factories scale positively and they scale negatively. So there. Now that we've done that, we're going to get our manager here. Now we've made her our passive manager. You don't really have to do anything specific. You can choose both passive and active, but it just makes sense for passive manager. Obviously, since we haven't gotten to the US yet, the US is going to be one of our later markets. We're going to set our passive task to be research. And we're going to put it in our filthy rich site, as that's where we're going to be doing our most research. Yeah, so it's a 50% bonus on top, below their 50%. So if they have they had an 80 skill. They had a 50 skill, and they gave a 25% bonus. So at least there, we're going to get at least 1.25 research points a day. So we're going to get a decent amount of research. So we've done part of the early preparation. So we're going to be going on to the next part of our preparation. And that's going to be building our home computer. Building our home computer, we really only have one real sense of building a home computer early on. Just gonna give it a name like that. I really don't like when it's unnamed systems. There we go. So you can name this anything you want. You don't have to follow this. But here you've got your little computer design. Once we need to go into all of these after we've released our computer, we're going to look into those. But for now, we're just going to look at design. So essentially PP, the thing that we had earlier, the production points from the factory, we're going to be needing these to produce one machine. Now, right now, there's an average cost of not available. That's because we haven't actually finished our production point site yet. That's because, well, it's actually a common complaint. People, why is there nothing here? But you have to just complete your site first. But honestly, if you just look at this, you're going to see 1.14 per production point. You don't have the 10% office yet. So that's actually going to be basically around $1 per production point. So essentially, when you're building your first system, you look at this production point and you look, that's per dollar. So here we've got accessories. We don't have any accessories yet. They give you a little boost in some of these categories. They're often very cheap, but you can't actually make them any cheaper. So over time, the production point actually compounds. Sometimes it's worth it just to take off some of the older basic ones. But at the start, you really want to have all of your accessories as you're trying to be ahead of your competition. So we're going to want to create our first system now. Now, for all of these, I'm going to do the optimal. So here we've got memory here. This is our RAM. We want to make sure all technologies are on, the DIP memory and the heatsink. Heatsink is very useful. If you have the option, you have to get it on. It gives you 5 quality. All opponents will have all technologies. They are locked on their hardware. So if you take off any technologies, keep that in mind. If your opponents have that hardware, they will put it on. So in terms of capacity, I'm pretty lazy. You want to have this as low as possible. You can really lower this down a lot, but I just keep it at 0.2. Because this is it's incredibly expensive. You double and you get such a amount. You can see here that capacity on memory, it's not really very good this early on. You only get this tiny amount of capacity points, which if you build a much bigger storage drive, it's not really realistic in a sense. So just put that back there. So it's not really realistic. So you just build a bigger storage drive, and strategically it's better. You save on money on the RAM. So yes, down here is compatible designs. We haven't unlocked personal computers, portables, or handhelds yet. So once we unlock those designs, it might be worth it to click on these. But right now, since we only have home computers, we do not click on any of these. It won't even work anyways. You can see I'm clicking. Now for memory, I personally like to increase the base clock. Since this is a recent update, they've actually much lowered production point costs or decrease if you have a lower or a higher. So here we've got 57.66. It's actually very good. and we have 2.75 megahertz, so it's great. So there's our memory. This increases our performance, by the way. So actually, I should probably go through each of these categories one by one. So here's performance. This is how fast your computer is. This is capacity, how much storage your computer has. Prestige, basically how prestigious your computer is, essentially. There's features, how many features your computer has. Ease of use, how easy it is to use, and quality, how much quality they have. So essentially, these actually don't matter. And that's a funny thing to say, but what actually matters is your preference, which we'll look at later. We'll look at preference later. But essentially, when you're building these, when you look at preferences, this is how much you'll focus on each of the six parts of 6 bonuses that something can provide. Now, also we've got heat and noise. That doesn't really matter early. Generally, heat, you don't want to have high heat or high noise. So you want to make sure you have as low of a heat as possible. That's by getting passive cooling technology. For example, the Peltier coolers. Water cooling is actually useful because it isn't as loud as fans. Also, bearings, very useful. But right now, since you're on your first system, there's really no need to worry about that or that. You have a maximum here, so if you exceed this maximum, you can't release your computer. Or if you have a higher than 10 of these, you can't release your product. This is the same for personal computers, but I think it's lower for portables and handhelds. Next, we're going to build the CPU. CPU is nothing special. We're going to just build this. You don't really have to look at anything here. Base clock is not very useful. As you can see, it's much less valued. So I'll just keep it at 225 kilohertz and be happy. It also increases your price by much more than memory, and you get much less of a bonus. Storage-wise, what you want to do here is you're going to get your Winchester heatsink, and generally you just lower this because these drives are really expensive. You really want to just lower these. You're going to get these in a different way. Instead of focusing on quality and performance, you're going to focus on capacity here. You need around 700 kilobytes to be ahead of the competition. So that's how much I'm going to put it. You need around this part slider. It could be a little less, but this is the safest point, and you're going to be ahead of all your competition. Now we're going to go on to the power supply. Power supply is a very important part of a system. We're going to basically increase the quality to compensate for our quality loss that we had in our storage. We're going to increase the quality here. It's also really cheap to do so compared to it's only 2 pp. If you keep that in mind, that's $2, and over time it'll be even less. So essentially, just use this. Also, you do see here that where your temperature comes in. Heatsink lowers your temperature by 1, and your power supply has a base temperature. However, if you see here, it's not very. You can see here that actually on power supply specifically, if you have increasing the quality lowers the temperature, which is actually a very interesting feature that they added recently. So that Progorion added recently. So just keep that in mind. So that's why I keep it at 15%. You don't have to worry about any of these features. You can see here 0 temperature, even though if it was just the base, it would be 1 temperature. The motherboard, now at the start, this is probably going to be one of your main feature and quality spots. I know it may not look like that yet. It's just a DIN connector, and you only have like one feature point and one quality point. But it's so cheap, like the operating system early on, that you really just want to raise your quality and features for this. It is literally no less than $1, and you get some of these features. There's not much to say. It's just a DIN connector. There's no real technology so we can actually add to it yet. So then we have the operating system. We really want this to be as good as possible. It is incredibly cheap. It's the cheapest hardware part, and you also get ease of use from this. A lot of ease of use, especially early on. And when you have the software licenses, as I was talking about earlier, and video games, these multipliers actually do apply even to the games and the software. So you can really scale an advantage in your OS and be able to withstand if your opponent gets ahead. You can still have a better ease of use and features. So we're going to want to research that. And then we've got display, and this is the last part of our computer, the display. I personally leave it just at the middle, because if you lower it, you have too little prestige, but it is quite expensive, so I don't want to raise it up. You usually only have like 1 to 5 display text at a time. Displays do eventually get very expensive, so it's probably not worth it to immediately just take this down. Features, you probably could take it down to save some cash, but there we go. This is basically your ultimate base computer. Pretty much every game mode I do, no matter whether it's intern or impossible, this is the base configuration that I use. Everything's basically how I like it. I literally just keep it like this. It's really standardized. Just make sure your power supply and your motherboard and your OS have their multipliers are increased, while the display keeps it at the middle. And the storage has it all lowered, except your capacity, which you want at least 700 kilobytes. And then your CPU, you're going to want just to leave it as normal. It's not very good early on. Eventually, you do want to increase this as you go on, and you get more CPUs that are useful. And RAM, of course, you want that really high base clock. Eventually, there'll be multipliers. We're going to unlock that once we get the integration technologies. So when we make our second system, we probably will have it, so I'll talk through that. So this is our computer. We can now go into the price. Now, when you build a computer, your base price is $8,000, but the average budget is $3,750 in the richest markets. As you can see here, there's a discount, so the discount can go to their average budget. So as you can see here, 75, 65, 50, 40, and 0. This is a bit weird. I sometimes change it. I don't really normally change it as it's a bit too much micro. So what I instead do is your base price. I personally put it at most you want double this, so 7,500. But I found around 6,750 is optimal. You've got basically pretty much everyone's happy, fairly rich, as long as eventually you're going to see it in this thing, affordability. So yeah, here, affordability. There's only a good filthy rich affordability, but it doesn't really matter because we're not going to be selling into filthy rich markets that much anyways early on. So yeah, but you want a high base price because then you can make more money off your system. If you keep on top of technology, you need to make sure to have a high base price. There's no point to have a really low base price like that. It's just not worth it. Here, you've also got your income for your production cost. So this is how much. Now, this doesn't actually immediately matter because we don't actually know our average cost. But we can see here, this is around $290. We could say $300 because of the little extra they have. $300, so we take that off, $1,388. That's because the production cost hasn't yet been added. We don't even know how much it is because our factory hasn't finished building yet. So this is our average budgets. So that's how much their average are willing to spend. But you can always go up to double of this. So for each one, you can also tinker around with discounts, make it a little higher if you wish. I'm just going to leave it like this though. Next, you have your your ranking stuff. So here you have a bunch, and this is your ranking. Right now, it doesn't really tell you much, but essentially it says how much of the world do you share. I actually think instead of going at this now, I think you should look back at this because currently it doesn't really tell us anything useful. You don't really want to look at this until you've got your first market and competition is starting to rise up. Now we have marketing. This is a very important part. You want to create this before creating your computer. So first of all, your preference focus. Now, essentially, casuals are the largest group, so you do want casuals to be your main target group. There used to be a time where later on fans would sell a huge amount of systems, but currently they have been really, their importance has been lowered. So preference focus wise, we're going to want somewhat. So this is your optimal preference focus. This is useful to make your marketing more efficient, but you want this. From my playing, this is the optimal strategy. And also with campaigns, I honestly just skip increasing your campaign size over time and keeping a base, small, medium, big, huge. I just leave that crazy the whole time, and I give it this. This is the optimal for home computers. Now this is the same for every single computer who's crazy for casuals. I think so. It's the same. However, your preference focus is different for each system for casuals and for all of these, of course. So there is a lot of combinations here, but casuals would probably make the most sense. Portals and home computers have very similar things to this for casuals. So yeah. But not the same, so you just need to keep that in mind once you get to that point. Finally, we have the release phase. This is our fourth phase, and so the last phase we're going to look at until after our release. Eventually, we're going to have to test and publish. Here it has an overview of all our statistics for the system, and there's also financial income. So how much profit did you make the last day? This is right now not useful, and your upfront cost. And this is important. Over time, this gets really high on Impossible. On your first system, it's like 9 million. But here, it's only 3 million. So I'm just going to put that on the test. So once you test, this is the curve strategy where you make a bunch of computers at the same time. And you kind of snowballed. And that's why this even exists. So there we go. After release, we're going to be able to look at these 3 screens, and I'll explain them in depth. So now we've done that. We want to make a little quick research tree. Now, research is one thing you want to micromanage, definitely. So you just want to make a quick research tree. So I'm going to go keyboard, S100 bus, BIOS, speaker, printer. This is essentially a really good base queue. Now, why? It's because it's really easy to earn some of these early bonuses through these technologies, features, and quality. They're very popular around the world. Now, some places they don't really like it. This game, I don't see many places where people want it. Whatever. But yeah, you can really get a performance advantage. You can really get a quality and features advantage. Keyboard is probably the most important first technology. You get prestige, ease of use, and features. So it's just no-brainer to research. After this is our base queue. Next, we're going to have to research some stuff that we don't want at full price. Glass teletype, tape drive, SCSI, compositor chips, and VLSI. We're going to ignore PROM up here, even though this gets researched extremely fast. This is an extremely expensive technology to put in and only gives you 1 feature point. So you're just going to want to avoid this entire little top bit. I mean, you could research it, but just useless. You're never going to use it. It's not useful at all. So now you have a queue here. Basically, these 5 here, these are the things we're going to research at full price because we're going to innovate in these categories. Meanwhile, these, we know the AI is going to research. And once the AI researches, the research cost goes down. As you can see here, the research cost for all of these is really high. The research cost for all of these is really high. And you need to really make sure that this high research cost is not really, you don't have to really spend that much. You want to make sure the AI researches that first. Well, of course, you're not going to get to all of these at the first time. So I'm just going to keep that in mind. So there, we have our base research queue done. We don't even need to look at it until around March or April, or when we go up here and we see one of these 5 texts up there. Now, I think it's time to do probably the last part before we can actually unpause the game, and that is getting a market. This is probably, you can't sell without a market. And with this new expansion system, now expansion is based on 12. It's based on for every 20 25 days, you can distribute 1 point, and 1 point gives you 12 million people in a market. This is a huge change over the old public branch, but it's the same as the open test branch. So if you haven't played the open test branch yet, this is a hugely different system. So now we're going to go here. Now, here we can just see they're not really worth it. There's no market with 12 million. You want to always go into markets with at least 10 million people plus per logistic point. So you don't really have to. But now one thing that this update does solve is that instead of going into huge markets immediately, you actually want to go into smaller markets that have better stats here. So we're just going to ignore Philly Rich. When we look at rich markets, you could also look at Philly Rich if you're on randomized, but you're going to want to look at some of the main statistics here. You want to look at one that has a really low tax rate, which is that, or a reseller cut. So we're going to look here, and we're going to see, because this is modern, because this is, what is it? What am I going to say? Because this is historical, we're all going to know. So essentially, your best strategy is to go Spain, Japan, USA, but with the tax manager. That's basically the strategy. Or you could even, I'm actually going to change it up. I'm going to do an immediate US strategy. Okay, I'm just kind of going off the rails. But I actually have an idea. I think this will work. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have to record another video. But essentially, when you do these passive tasks, you have to be at a site. So a lot of them, like this tax reduction bonus, it's very important. So I put them in the US. Now, the US is only rich, so we don't want production, even though it's cheaper than Switzerland. But we do want a research site at least. We're going to build the essentials. Whenever you're building a site, you want to at least have an office and a logistics center and either a factory or a research center. Remember? And then we're going to put in the tax reduction bonus manager. This is on historical only. If you're on randomized, it could be a bit different. But yeah, now we've got 10 million, so I think we'd be fine with that. So that's changed my logistic plan. Usually you'd want to go into Spain and Japan immediately. But if you do the accounting manager strat, you're going to want to go into the US. And then you want to put it to your equivalent LP amount. So if we have got 3 level 1s we're building, so we're going to put at 6 logistic points. We don't want to go over. Actually, 1 over is probably fine. Any more than 1 over is bad. And after that's done, which will be in a long time, so essentially your strategy is you're going to go into the US, you're going to go in Spain, and then Japan. And then essentially you're going to start going into these other rich markets like Italy or Germany, Italy, Canada. You're going to look at which one has the lowest, the best multipliers. You can see here, like Austria here is really cheap. Austria is actually, I wonder if that's cheaper than one of our markets. No, it isn't. It is more expensive. But then you're going to want to go Spain, Japan, and Australia. But again, starting the US, but with a accounting manager is really useful. So we've got our base groundworks all set up. So as you can see here, though, the one last thing we're going to look at is the preference here. As I haven't been talking about this, so you can see here, they really like ease of use. Now our keyboard is going to provide us ease of use. This means that they value the ease of use more than everything else. As you can see here, they like prestige a bit. They don't care about performance, features, capacity, or quality. Now these actually, you do want to focus on these. These are the 3 best. These are the 3 easiest to get. Performance is one of the hardest. That's very good. Ease of use and prestige is kind of hard. You have to get display technology sometimes for these. So I'm not sure if it was the best idea. Well, we'll just have to see. So we've got our basic groundwork set up. I think at this point now, I'm just going to explain you the top bar just right before we pause. That's our dates. There we have our percentage of our potential customer base that were covered by logistics. So essentially, if you have like everywhere, you have a logistic point everywhere, logistic points everywhere, it's 100%, but it goes up over time. So yeah. Then you got a fan amount. Then you got market share, fan amount. Fans always buy your systems. A profit here that tells you how much profit you're making every day, and that's your actual money. It's in Computer Tycoon dollars. It's a little known fact. It used to be CTD, but now it has a little dollar symbol to prevent confusion. Then we also have the map control. This is on this side. So here we've got economy view mode, population view mode, area of view mode, dominancy view mode. So this tells you your economy. I already showed you. This shows you how many people these markets have. I wouldn't personally look at the people anymore. Instead of looking at that, I would personally just go here and look at something with over 12 million people. But, I mean, you can still see this. It's not very useful anymore. Area of. Eventually, once we in the opposition have markets, they're going to be colored. And whoever's area this is, you have selected down here, whoever's area that they put logistic points in, as little as 1, but it essentially tells you where you have the logistic points, or where they have logistic points. But dominancy tells you who's the best in a specific market. So for example, me and Brutal Data are competing in the United States, and Brutal Data has more sales than me, so the country will show up green on the map. But if I put the area of and green, it will be green, and blue it will be blue, because we both have logistic points there. That's just a little explanation of that. Now you've got preference. This is essentially the same preference, but shows you the darker the color, the more they like it. So like here you can see features, ease of use, prestige. You really want to know these icons. The features is the little toolbox. Ease of use is like a little plate and a little cord to make sure it's as easy to use as possible. Prestige is a diamond, as you'd see it. Diamond is being prestigious. Performance is a CPU, pretty obviously, which you should probably be able to guess that. Quality is the star. This is not prestige, even though they seem similar, but yeah, this is quality. And then there's capacity, which is this little barrel thingy. Now the last part we want to know about is our market, because a lot of markets are actually closed or communist. There's actually a different. Okay, let's look at tax rate first. So tax rate, also darker, higher, and reseller darker, higher. And the tax rate comes out first from all your sales, and the reseller comes second. So that's how that works. Now we're going to look at closed and open markets. All of these markets are closed. The red markets are closed. This means that you cannot sell to them. However, you cannot sell to them, or you cannot build a site to them. So essentially, you can really only look at this part. So you have a really funny message here. Our people don't need capitalist companies, neither will we support them. You'll see here the USSR. So because this is 1974, in order to if you play, it'll be there. But yeah. So that means, and a lot of these markets are closed. You can only have a closed communist market. There's no such thing as a closed capitalist market. There's no closed capitalist market in the game. It wouldn't even make sense. But yeah, you can't sell or you can't build a market. If you look at communists, which at the start of the game, they're the exact identical. But over time, there is one market on historical that will be open communist, and that will be China. China eventually. Now, the one dumb thing is you cannot actually build a site in China ever. It just makes no sense at all. You can't build a site in China because communist prevents you from building sites, but an open communist allows you to put logistic points in, but you cannot build a site. Open capitalist allows you to build logistics and a site, and closed market allows you to do basically nothing with them. There's also a For the Motherland scenario, and in the For the Motherland scenario, you're going to be focusing on these communist markets. Now, it's kind of off topic, but that's one of the game modes. So now, this statistics screen, we'll look at this at the end so we can see how this works. And we've got our site manager, research, and I believe that is everything. As soon as you've got your research queue and everything, I think it's just about ready to start. So nothing really is happening. It takes 30 days for something to build, so you're going to want 30 days before you market your first system. As you can see here, our first logistic point is being allocated into the United States. As you can see, and then monetary flow is quite negative indeed. Now, one thing you can see here, we're still going for more logistic points, because that's one logistic point for every 12 million people. You need them to go to people. In the old update, I think they only lowered reseller cost. So, only changed reseller cost. So, see, now it's been patched out, a little bug that said that they would have a lower reseller cut. So now there's really no way to lower a reseller cut anymore in this game. So hopefully there'll be a system like that one day. But I do think this logistics system is an improvement. So yeah, we're going to wait another 5 more days. There we go. Once you get to the 31st, you're going to market your system. I'm not profitable, or I'm reloading my SPP. So that means this, so these are also little circular icons. This one tells you there's a computer ready to be released. So if you have a computer in testing, put them in 30 days and they're ready to release. You can actually release a system earlier if you wish, but you don't really want to because, well, you don't have your factories done. Later on, if you're really in a rush to release a system, you could, but you do miss out on some of these categories and they're not as polished. So then you have the dollars. You're not profitable. Essentially, right now, of course, we haven't sold anything yet, so our factory's costing 133,000 a day. Just doesn't really help. So you can see here, I can't really show you using the mouse cursor, but when it comes to income, at the top there's a little home computer icon. That's from home computers. There's a personal computer icon. And that's for personal computers, which is above the laptop, and there's a laptop icon, which is for laptops. There's a little handheld icon for like a tablet. That's your tablet income. And then the motherboard underneath the tablet, that's actually for hardware. Once you unlock personal computers, you can start selling hardware, and it's a very profitable business to do so. And one great thing about hardware is you don't have to pay marketing cost, so it's essentially free to distribute. Then, of course, last but not least, we do have the CEO. That's essentially CEO negotiation. If you look down here, there's a little CEO negotiation button. There's this. I'm going to be looking at this a little later, but essentially that means how much money you're making from deals with your opponents. Deals sort of work like in Civilization games, Civilization 6, for example, where you sort of ask them for something and you give something in exchange. But this, it works with research and some other things. I will detail it in depth, so you don't have to worry. Finally, we got expense. The top little tax form for expense, that's tax. Underneath it, the person with the percentage icon on it, that's reseller cut. Then there's the site icon, and the site icon, as you can see, the site icon, the little crane icon, that's how much you're paying on sites. As you can see here, we've already built some sites, so we're paying money on sites. Then after that, we have marketed computers with marketing. The television icon with the little your computer is ready icon. That's how much you're spending on marketing. So marketing, early on you're going to have to outsource all of your marketing. It's done automatically. But once you build enough marketing sites, you get like a bonus, and so eventually it's free. But you do have to pay the cost for the marketing sites anyway. So then underneath, that's how much you're paying every day for loans. Loans I'm going to look at, but I'm not sure if I'll need to take out a loan during this specific playthrough. Because loans are very useful. You really want to use one on the impossible to get a huge bonus. But yeah. So it's important. Then you've got CEO negotiation. That's how much you're paying somebody else for your CEO negotiation. Then there's also issues with logistics. That last one. You see the little warning icon with the little logistics icon. That's how much you're paying for your excess logistics. This is exponential, or I think it is exponential, as it gets much, much bigger for each logistic points you had. Now, since we just got the 5 logistic points, it's going to go back down to 0. If you have a positive logistic point manage or 0 logistic points, then you won't have to pay any fee. Then there's also the last little icon for the managers. That's how much you're spending every day for managers. And there's, of course, a sum for both. That's your little explanation of your income. So if you're really worried where you're paying and where you're getting, That's what we're going to look at. So our system is being marketed. So I believe that now it is ready to play our first day. Okay. Sales aren't looking so good. Now one thing I will do is we do have the money, so I am going to take down the Indian research site. Generally, I wasn't expecting to build a third site, so I would have had that on, but since I'm going to do that. India, we're going to make sure that we're going to get another factory upgrade, and we're going to get office upgrade. So there we go. Now in India, one thing you do want to do is you want to micromanage it, because you're paying 102,000 a day. So you're definitely losing money. Eventually you can afford to have your SPP full, which is your stockpile, so you can immediately just sell off. But now we've got 250,000 and we only have 24,000. This means we can survive around 10 days without producing anything. There we can keep our money safe for a little while until, yeah, unfortunately, now we have to put it back. It's a little micro point. Now, if you do have 100,000, your SPP is full, you're not paying for any extra production. You're only paying for your currently used production. So, yes. That's one thing. What's happened to our demand? It just collapsed. That's strange. I wasn't expecting demand to collapse. Okay, our demand has now finally increased. So as you can see here, we're actually going to be making a profit. This doesn't really update super fast, but if you look at here,
your building upgrade has completed.
oh yeah, we ran out of computers. So now I can put it back at 61,000. As you can see here, we're struggling. We don't have any speed, and if you see this icon, that means you've ran out of systems.
You have researched a new technology.
It's weird. Oh yeah, we have the tax reduction bonus there. So yeah, this is the first part is really micro heavy. You want to make sure your micro is right so you make a profit. Okay, so you've passed the first 3 months, and now you're going to start to see huge profit numbers. This is really nice. You're going to start seeing huge profit numbers. Now, I'm going to raise our research now. We can afford it. We're not making too much money, but with the more logistic points we receive, the better we do have it. So you can see over time, your production point really goes up. Your really start is going to be very rough, but once you've got like 3 or 4 logistic points into the logistic price, it's strange. I've never seen the term logistic price here, so that's interesting. But then you're just going to be able to sell without any issue. So now, since it's March, I do want to take a look. I want to explain you some more. So now we're going to go back to the pricing screen, and we're going to see, as you can see, by speccing high, and despite not even paying much for your cost, you can see we're pretty much ahead of everyone, and we're basically the same on prestige, as you can see here. For some reason you're lowered. So essentially, if you disable this, that means you won't see this person's computer. So that's Will Bright from IBM. So that's the company. I pretty much Raj Kumar, Brutal Data, Biggs Computers. I really know all of these guys off by heart. There's your manager you select, your CEO you select, and your color will show up here. And that color for these will show here. So we're just going to leave all of them on. As you can see here, we've got the best performance. This means how good we are. We're 9th place. I mean, we are the same as everyone else, so it's not really a big difference. But here we're the best. If it says like 2 or 3, that means you're 2nd or 3rd. It's pretty obvious. Now here you do have one thing. This is how much market you share with this person. Now, of course, if you're the one that's number 1, it's going to say 100%. But here it says 0%. Why? Well, that's because I'm not sharing any markets with Will Bright. So if I go into Italy, for example, I would be sharing a market with IBM. So that means I would get a little percent here for a share. So there. Now, after this, we're going to go on to, after release, reviews. Now, this is our initial reviews. When we go back into here, This will be up to date, but current reviews, since your first system, basically all of these will be really good. This is casuals, cheapskates, gamers, workers, and fans. Fans never seem to like to give a 10 out of 10. I really don't know how that's possible. Have to build a really good system for them to have a 10 out of 10. So you can see here, casuals, cheapskates. And then you go to customers, and this is how much you sold last day. So you've sold 6,700 the whole time since the start of February. We've sold 206 the last day, and this tells you how much you sold all time for each of these categories. So now, of course, we haven't really built a fan group yet. So since we haven't built a fan group yet, fans aren't actually buying our system. It's our first system, so fans, they don't really have any proper fans. So over time, this figure will build up once you actually have fans. You can see bought yesterday, if you focus on casuals, they're always the biggest group and they take up the most. So now this is interesting, the whole user group. Okay, I've never really understood that, but now I do. Now that's of the whole user group. So for example, how much sales of each of these categories from all systems on the market came from you? So for example, I took half of all the casual computer sales compared to all of our opponents. I took half of all casual sales. That's one big thing you want to know. So yes, there. And this is all the whole group. Now, at first, you're pretty much only going to be rich, average, and fairly rich. So you're just really not going to see anything here. But once you get to portables and personal computers, you can just go anywhere because you have so many computers that's actually worth it to market your systems in the market, in the poor markets. Look. Yes. And then the last screen, there's alternatives. So now, it's weird. We're only in the US, and our main alternative is Data Systems. Is Data Systems? So this is a bit weird. And Data Systems is actually here. And that's really weird. They do have a logistic point in there though. Their systems just must not be selling though. It's not even that bad. But as you can see, this is your alternatives. In your markets, what alternatives are there? So you can see here, their system is really bad. They're only selling 30 systems. They don't have as high of a base price as us. But there's also a price matrix. As you can see, our computer is actually cheaper than theirs. Just Filthy Rich is more expensive. So essentially, Filthy Rich, though, will be willing to pay more for a good computer. So yeah, there's no markets I don't have alternatives. There's one alternative product. My marketing efficiency is 96%. I'm not sure how to get that 100%. I think I have perfect marketing, but And then there's sold yesterday. This is your attribute points rank. That's basically the same thing as you see here. And I explained. Then there's affordability. Great, good. This is how affordable it is. It really doesn't matter. As long as it's good, it's fine. And then there's up-to-date review scores. As you can see, since the new computers have released, cheapskates no longer like my computer as much. So, unfortunate. And fans are no longer as liking, but casual gamers and workers. I'm not sure why it says office. It's more, the actual group is marketed as workers. Yes. Needs to be a little bit of correction there. Again, this is an early access game. It's been in early access for 9 years now. Full release is planned this or next year. Now, there haven't been a lot of updates lately, but this is one update that has been updated recently. So, it's Computer Tycoon on Steam, if you don't already know what this is. So yes, we've looked through all those screens now. Now I want to go here, and we're going to go at this screen. This is the survey. This survey essentially tells you, basically, this is a survey. Okay, so you survey your sales and you see. So here you've got hardware. This is the percentage of this user group in the country. So as you can see here, pretty much all countries are going to be mostly... It's interesting, it's the same everywhere. Pretty much all countries are the same. I wonder if that's different for each. I think it differs based on... Yeah, it depends based on wealth. I don't really pay attention to this too much, but it's definitely one thing I should pay attention. There are more cheapskates in rich and poor markets. Oh, and you can see in Filthy Rich they have a lot of gamers. But yeah, you want to focus on casuals because the rich are always in the casual market. So yes. This is their share group. And this is your, like, from each of these groups, that's the same how much percent of that country they are in. And their favorite computer and, well, no, our computer and our score. Now you can take this off and you can see who's the best after that. So you can see it's this guy. But as you can see here, if you take him off, we're at 100. So he's only affecting our scores by 3 on these and only 1 on that. So that means nobody wants to buy his data systems computer here. It's just unfortunate, but that's what you have to do. Now, since he has a logistic point here, he hasn't sold a single system. I'm not sure how that's possible. But you've got 208, you've 4,050 is the local price, the release date, and this sales yesterday. So this is a nice. You can also add in all of these once you get to portables, personal computers, and handhelds. See, that's the little screen. Now I've got the market base, like so here, governmental support, the same I showed you earlier, and there. Now profitability. So this is it worth selling it? Now income, computer, hardware. And now sales tax and a reseller cost. And now it's saying average market cost, how much we're paying for this market. Marketing, production, and then how much profit we're making on average. And then the local market profit that needs to be fixed. Local market profit per 1 million people. So we're getting 2,000 for every 1 million people that we, I think, sell to. Because how many logistic? We have 4 logistic points in there, so that's 48, so 50. I wonder if that's trying to, yeah, whatever. But then you can go here, average company overhead cost. Now this overhead cost is a bit strange. It says it's 2.1 million on sites, even though I only spend 430,000 a day. This whole part is essentially broken. This average global company profit, I think it hasn't been updated. This was a beta and it was just moved. So this needs to be fixed. The company overhead cost, the salaries are wrong, the logistic penalty is I don't see there, but yeah. So the global company profit, this is wrong. We're making a profit. If our global company profit was negative here, we wouldn't be making money up here. So yeah, that is pretty much every system detailed in this. There's one last thing you'll need to look at, statistics, but first, oh yes, and CEO negotiation. I haven't even got to that, but we're going to give it some time. So now we're going to go here and you're going to look at all the cheap stuff. You're going to start researching the cheap stuff. So once you see there, you've got 3 research points a day. So we're going to say 30 days, around 30 days for that. The research queue also tells you how many days once you have research. For example, gas teletype, 34 days. So we're going to want to build that glass teletype. Wherever that is. Again, up there. If you click on this, you get a nice little quick research queue. You can also go into this screen and you can open your queue here. So that's nice. So we can go in, we can finish the printer, and we'll do the glass teletype. Because it's really cheap, because a lot of people have researched it, we can easily research it. As you can see here, all the competitors are researching it. So you can just see how our research point requirement went down. You also want to pay attention for your production here. So now I do actually want to see if there's anything worth researching that's really cheap. And the answer to that is no. That's because you do not want to delete a computer later than the 25th of May. So once you see your 33 days, 28 days, 28, yeah, these just all are out of my day range. So, yeah. But yeah, we do have more. So what we're going to do is once we get this glass teletype, there's no real point of continuing since we're not going to research. And we're just going to go here. The CEO negotiation. This is the main strategy. If you want to get rich, there's one for negotiations. First, I'm going to go through some of the other things. Next, we got check home. This is where you buy totally useless stuff, as the game says. So there's a little what is this screen. If you want to pause, you can read it. It's essentially just useless objects that make you feel like you've accomplished something. So here you can enjoy the view. It has a little ocean sound effect. I'm not sure if you can hear that. Then you can buy and stuff. So like a stray cat, stray dog, it's really expensive. It's really just to showcase your money. So for example, if you buy, something shows up. You'll buy the stray cat, the stray dog. Buy basic house, cheap car. You know, you see, this really, it's really just starts looking nice. And it's just, I mean, this isn't really very nice. This looks very bad, in my opinion. But yes, so to leave here, you're just gonna go back here, and we're back into our main office. Now, one interesting thing is that the office backdrop actually changes for each, I think for each manager. So since we have the first manager, or the little Steve Jobs interpreted manager, you can see here. Well, when we go here, you can actually see your little image there, the Steve Jobs manager you have here, essentially. So that means we get this little office. So it depends on all offices. So next we have legal actions. If we're going to be suing someone, this is where you do it. Now, we don't really actually have any grievances. This tells you how many grievances they have and how many grievances we have. The first number is our grievances that we can use to sue, and the second number is their grievances that they can use to sue us. So that means there's nothing we can sue them for. But if we're going to sue, you can say what they did. You're just going to click on the one that's open. You're going to do a strategy. I honestly always do optimal alignment for victory, just because I always want to win. But yeah, our fan game, their fan loss. It just gives you some real bonuses. And it's basically just you have to pay a little bit of money. You could get some good bonuses. So I would recommend legal action if they cause it. You will also get like notifications, but since we're only doing this as just a 1974 guide, so we probably won't have to go into a legal action. Before we go into negotiation and connection graph, so essentially you can click on any one of these, and it shows our connection to everyone else. So currently, since nobody's really done any proper trades yet, you can see everyone's pretty much neutral. Over time, they could become hostile or positive towards you, it depends. But here you can see some buttons. You can ignore this player completely. So like if they send offers and demands, you're going to receive a like little notification up here. Then you can trade with them. You can deny all of the demands. Demands are when they ask you for something. So yeah, that's there. And then there's also meet the CEO, which you can do also with the negotiate button. Here's a little color coding, and you can of course do anyone, so that's fun. Now, of course, we're going to go into negotiation. This is the most important part. We've got a bunch. They all have unique soundtracks and everything. So Will Bright, we're going to go into Will Bright here. You can see the music really changes. So they give you some introduction background, and you got a bunch of options here. You can trade. So here's you can trade essentially you can trade money, a blueprint, which you can't really do that onto personal computers. I don't really do that anyway. Progorion's trying to improve blueprints in the next update. So and technologies. So we've got Prom VLSI, we have keyboarding last held. They don't. Then we have gifts. We can just give stuff. This actually gives you a high relationship than just trading and just they don't get anything. They don't give anything. So you want it, if you're just gonna give them something for free, you want to do a gift because that gives your relationship up much higher. Demand, I never do demands because they pretty much never work. As you can see, it's very likely for them to not work. So, and there's a little relationship change. That's it. If it fails or succeeds, there's a little relationship change. If they really dislike it, if they decline, if they get really annoyed, you actually can't go with them for a year. You can't trade with them for a year, so you don't want that. Research agreement, yeah, you need to get you get higher relationship quality before you actually do your research agreement. It's just not worth it. Not worth it early on. It's just not very useful though once you get that, so that needs to be a little improved. Offer friendship, we really don't. They won't accept. It says you have to get to a point where you actually have a good relationship to do that. But you can declare rivalry at any time you want because, well, you can be negatives. What I'm actually going to do with all of the managers is a really strong strategy. You're going to go here, take on prom, just avoid prom. Take their technology and go here to money. Now what you want to do is put in a number. I'm going to put in for 10 years, so 3,650 days. So you're going to put in as little of a number as you can. So as you can see there, I'm just not very certain about that. Here it's pretty likely, you can see why research price multiple people researched it, so I'm just going to make the offer, and they accept, of course. So now I'm giving them 6,666 a day. Now that's not a lot of money, but if we were to give it immediately, we'd be paying more than we actually have. So since we're going to be basically guaranteeing a profit for a long time, we're going to be able technologically ahead of everyone else, and that's probably what we want. Now we have brutal data. Brutal data has prom, we're going to leave. Makes computers. And look at William Big being bred. They really changed the colors recently, so it's just getting a little annoying for me. Prom. It's interesting. If you see prom, just avoid it. Cheaper actually has all of our technologies. That's interesting. At the bottom, you can see their little grievances. And then negotiate there. Oh, it's grievances. That's shown in everywhere. Sorry. But here, there's a little money. That's how much we owe them. They owe us. There's some buttons there. And like lawsuit. It just shows you what's happening with you and them. So yeah, Mr. Sato here. That's the first number is how many trades we can trade to them. And the second number is how many trades they can texting and give to us. So got Axel Chicago. I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. I don't really know how to pronounce that little A with those 2 dots above it. Prom. Why does everyone have prom? It's just, it's useless. You only get 1 feature point. It's much better just to get some other technologies instead. Okay, now here, this is one big technology, 10 micron. I will actually be able to explain to you one of the most important features in this game. So I'm just going to give them a high offer. Of course, they'll accept, so let's do something much lower. They won't accept. Just want to look at something where they're basically above 50%. I wouldn't risk it for anything else. I'm just going to risk it. There we go. If this actually allows you to go again and again, you don't want this to be above 10% really, so. Of course, we're going to, after we got Francisco Rapido, Ben Klugman, we'll look through the last 2. It's probably just going to be prom, which I really don't like. Yeah, I think everybody has got prom except me. It's just not worth to get prom. They might give you a gift or a trade offer, but, you know. I just don't want to. So, yes, we've completed our first negotiation round. And we're going to basically be doing that every 6 months from now on. So, we're going to want to build computers in November and May. So, before the 25th of November and in November, but before the 25th, and in May, before the 25th, we're going to be building computers each of those times. So they can be ready for the next month when all the other competitors release their updated model. That's basically their structure of their release. So we're going to go out and upgrade the CD system. So how this essentially works, you can change your name. Now accessories we have 2 accessories, we can just click on them, or you can just go all none if you need them. We can upgrade the memory here. So one big thing, you can go VLSI. These techs lower your cost, but as you can see here, the 10 gives you a multiplier. As you upgrade the technologies, the micron technologies, they increase, the multiplier becomes better and better, the max. So here I'm just going to put it at 1.5. It's a bit expensive, but get a huge bonus from that. archive the old one. Archive basically puts them in this list, so you don't really have to. It's just for decluttering. I'm just gonna put 1.5 multiplier on everything, as if I can. So there we got the CPU 1.5 multiplier. Storage, if you don't see a number in the top corner, it's not even worth to open it. That means there's literally nothing to change here. Motherboard, we've got 3 things to add. So we've got this means you can see here that even though it has the S100 bus, it's not actually much more expensive at all. OS, there's nothing new. There's actually 2 here. If you see software licenses and games are down here, and actual technologies are up there. And of course, the display, because we unlocked the glass teletype, we do need the glass teletype. So there. So I think that is it. So that's what our main computer here is going to be. So we're going to go pricing, we're going to go marketing, we're going to go release, and we're going to go test. Since we copied our previous model, we have basically all of the foundations from the previous model. So now we're on our second model, and from here you got so much money. You're going to be getting rich, you're going to be increasing your sites, you're going to be micromanaging this PP amount to be as much as it actually is. You're going to be upgrading your research, you got 10 million, we're going to have logistics, we have level 2 for your upgrade for logistics. You're going to be upgrading that. You're going to be upgrading everything here. So you're on a really good foundation. If you want, I could do a continuation for second half 1974 and just more guide. If you'd like that, comment down below, like the video, just all you know. So yes. One last thing I will get into before the end of this video is this screen. This is statistics, very useful. As you can see here, cash flow, well, that was already there. I should have just used that button. Here you can take a loan. There's a repayment period. You can see the end of repayment, the monthly installment, the amount to repay, and the annual percentage rate. Basically, how much you repay and like redemptional penalty. So if you have capital debt, 100,000. So this is like repayment. If you have to repay, you have 115,000. So you can go all the way up to 10 million, and you can also do an extension too. So I only really use this if you need to release a computer and you can't afford the testing phase. So this is our income, profit. Our profit, I don't know how this is really calculated. It's a bit strange, but essentially here's all of our expenses for the year and our income. Basically at the start, you're only going to be making income from home computers. There's a sales by design. Home computers are basically the only computers this year. Now, actually, these screens are a little broken. It's going to be a graph here because it's 1974. It actually only starts at 1975. So it just shows you how many sales you have by design. So your specific sales. And there's also the global sales. This is different. This will be different. Then the global market share, as you can see, I'm an engineer. I've just dominated the competition, as you can see here. The competition, I'm just far ahead, 45%, and all time, because it was still 1974, it's the same. So, yes, there we go. Preferences wise, my market, this is the global, this is how the global world sees preferences. But this is your market, so this is what you want to focus on. When you're looking at technologies after this is what you're going to want to focus on. That's one tip. Customers wise, this is your economy level. The economy level global buyers, you can see basically pretty much all buyers are rich, so you want to target them. Then there's also top markets by sales this year. As you can see, the US had 54% of sales, and all my sales are in the US. So as you can see here, behind there are all these other countries. Then you have singularity. This is one of the victory types. There's actually 3 victory types. Time, which is surviving to 2034. Singularity, researching every single technology until 2034. And monopoly, being the only company left. And to bankrupt the company, it's not just if the company runs out of money, of course that means bankruptcy. But if the company has a too low market share for a long time, it actually does become bankrupt. Because the AI doesn't play by the exact same rules as the humans, so is that they make a lot more money. That's one thing. Dominancy, this is just your current dominancy. It's like your Basically, another way to show off your global market sales share by sales this year. As you can see here, this definitely changes very drastically at the start of the next year. Fan distribution, this tells you the economy level of your fans, your market sales distribution by sales group. So this is the sales group I was talking about earlier. Who has the most fans? Of course we do. And markets of our fans. I'm actually going to check one thing here. Fans still are not buying it. I think fans will start buying the system. But I hope you enjoyed this little comprehensive entry guide towards your first 6 months in Computer Tycoon. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.